In a quiet, forgotten New England town, there's a house that everyone avoids. Its roof sags under decades of neglect, and vines creep along its crumbling walls. The windows, broken and dirty, reflect the world outside like hollow, lifeless eyes. Locals don't talk about the house, at least not openly. But if you spend enough time there, you'll hear the whispers. Stories of people who lived there and never left. Stories of doors that open by themselves and footsteps in the dark. Some houses never forget. Welcome to the Smoking Sun. Here, we tell stories that chill to the bone, leaving you questioning what's real and what's lurking just out of sight. If you enjoy unsettling true crime tales, be sure to subscribe. Now, let's get into today's story. In 1982, Claire Russell moved into an old farmhouse in a remote New England town. She was a graduate student from New York City, seeking peace and quiet to finish her thesis. Life in the city had worn her down. Constant noise, distractions, and deadlines. When she found a low-cost rental in the countryside, she thought she had found her sanctuary. The house was large and isolated, surrounded by overgrown vegetation. The walls creaked with age, and a faint smell of damp wood lingered in the air. Still, it was exactly what Claire thought she needed. That first night, Claire settled in, brewing herself coffee and turning on the old TV she'd brought with her. She flipped through static-filled channels until she landed on MASH. For the first time in weeks, she felt calm. At first, the house's quirks didn't bother her. The wind rattled the windows and the wooden floors groaned underfoot. Just an old house, she told herself. But that explanation wouldn't hold for long. Within a few days, Claire noticed strange occurrences. Doors she knew she had closed were suddenly wide open. Objects moved to different places on their own. Her coffee mug reappeared on a windowsill she never used. And at night, she began hearing faint, unintelligible whispers. One night she saw the attic door slightly ajar. She froze, trying to remember if she had opened it earlier. It felt wrong. She locked the door and went to bed, hoping to sleep off her unease. But her nerves kept her awake long into the night. A few nights later, Claire woke to the sound of footsteps. They were slow and heavy, coming from the attic above her. The footsteps moved steadily from one end of the house to the other, as though someone or something was pacing. Claire lay frozen in bed, heart pounding. The footsteps continued for hours, finally stopping just before dawn. She didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, she ventured into the attic with a flashlight. Everything was undisturbed. The dust remained thick and untouched. There were no footprints. Claire began asking around town, hoping for answers. Locals reluctantly shared stories about the house. They spoke of a man named Joseph Tanner, who had mysteriously vanished in the 1950s. Before him, a family called the Hammonds had lived there in 1911. The Hammonds had also disappeared overnight. Neighbors at the time reported seeing strange lights in the windows and hearing eerie noises. The house had a reputation for being cursed. Most people avoided talking about it, as though even mentioning its name might invite something sinister into their lives. One of the townspeople recommended that Claire meet Daniel Crawford, a local historian. At the Historical Society, Daniel explained that the house had a long and unsettling history. Residents over the decades had reported similar phenomena: footsteps, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched. Some even claimed to have seen shadowy figures in the corners of rooms. Daniel showed Claire a journal written by Joseph Tanner. The final entry read, "It won't let me leave. It's always there, watching." Determined to investigate further, Claire returned to the attic. She found a small hidden door behind a pile of dusty furniture. Its presence filled her with an overwhelming sense of dread. A few days later, she forced the door open. Inside was a tiny, windowless room. Deep scratches marked the walls as if someone had clawed at them in desperation. During a fierce storm, Claire woke to deafening pounding on the front door. The sound echoed through the entire house, shaking the walls with each strike. Terrified, Claire crept downstairs. When she opened the door, there was no one there, but muddy footprints led from the porch into the house, and there were no footprints leading back out. By dawn, Claire had packed her belongings and fled. She never returned. The house still stands abandoned and decaying. Locals say they see flickering lights in the attic and hear footsteps pacing through the empty halls. Despite leaving, Claire couldn't escape the nightmares. Even now she wakes in the middle of the night, convinced she can hear pounding on the walls. So if you ever come across a house with a dark reputation, think twice before stepping inside. Some houses never forget, and some doors should stay locked forever. And that's the story of the Tanner House. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe to The Smoking Sun. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you next time.